Well, welcome to Bardstown. This is the Bardstown Bourbon Company. I had a hand to play in bringing this group in. This company was out of DC area and they were looking to build a distillery. And they were looking all over the place, and they came to Bardstown at one point in time. This is an industrial park that we own, and recruited them here. They were only going to make one bottle of bourbon at the time. It was going to be a very small distillery making one bottle called Clearing Spirits. And now they have branched out into this beautiful state-of-the-art restaurant, a beautiful visitor center, the best cocktails in town, and now they're the talk of the state. This has gotten to be one of the most popular places to eat in the state of Kentucky. You wouldn't imagine the number of people that runs through here. So we hope at some point in time you all can come back, enjoy the restaurant, enjoy the cocktails, and experience a little bit more about what the Bardstown Bourbon Company has to offer here. But they're one of 8 distilleries. In the last 2 or 3 years, we recruited 3 new distilleries to Bardstown. So it makes total, we've got about 8 distilleries here, including Jim Beam on one end that we claim. Maker's Mark is in another county, but we claim them on the other side too. And then so many others on the inside. Why are we the bourbon capital of the world? Because 80% plus of the bourbon that's made and stored is right here in Nelson County, in a county of 40,000 people and a town of 14,000 people. We are the bourbon capital of the world. It's kind of the heart and the epicenter of all things bourbon. And the Bourbon Trail, everybody's heard about the Bourbon Trail. Basically, we're the center of the Bourbon Trail. You might want to start in Louisville, you might want to end in Lexington, back and forth. There's all sorts of ways to do it. We're kind of the epicenter of all things bourbon here. So I was given a list of questions from you guys, and they were excellent questions, and they're actually questions I can answer. So I'm going to go by the sheet of paper here, and then I'm going to answer these questions, and then open it up to you guys too. If anything more that you want to learn about Bardstown and bourbon or tourism and everything else that goes on in this little small town. How do you keep people in Bardstown to spend their money and not just coming to a distillery and leaving? That's an excellent question. You know, we have so many distilleries in Bardstown now that it is just that. There's a lot of people who want to do this bourbon trail. You get a passport, you get to go to the bourbon distilleries, you get it stamped, you go to the next one, you get it stamped, and you get a gift after you do that. So you do have a lot of people rushing through town, just getting these stamps, doing all that. But we were tourism before bourbon was here. We've actually the second oldest town in Kentucky. Second to who? What's the oldest town in Kentucky? Anybody know? Harrodsburg. Harrodsburg because Old Fort Herod is there, but it's the oldest town and we're the second oldest. So we had tourism anyway. Our state shrine, my Old Kentucky Home State Park, what you hear after every football and basketball game, the cheerleaders all swaying back and forth to that, and you hear it before the Kentucky Derby. There is a My Old Kentucky Home. It's a state park and it's right here in Bardstown. It's almost located in downtown Bardstown. So we had tens of thousands of visitors that were coming through town for the historic preservation piece of it, coming to town for the Stephen Foster outdoor drama that we had here. So we had that tourism anyway. But when bourbon started to make a surge again, and people started thinking bourbon was cool and the cocktails were cool and whatever other reasons why people think that bourbon came back, we were fortunate that we already had it. We were organic. It was authentic. We already had distilleries that were here and making bourbon. They just weren't making a lot then because it wasn't very popular. But when bourbon started to hit overseas as well as domestically, we had the distilleries and they just cranked back up again. So the bourbon was here, but we already had our base of tourism, so we were ahead of most everybody else in that. So, you know, that is part of who we are, and we are today. People say, is there going to be a bourbon boom? Is it going to peak and then it's going to fall back off? Well, we hope not, because as you know, in every one of these warehouses, whether it's 24,000 barrels or 50,000 barrels, we're aging a lot of bourbon in there for people to drink in the future. That's one of the industries that's so odd, you know, that you can make vodkas and gins and drink them. You know, you have to make bourbon, it's got to sit for several years, so you're not making any money on this product. Not only are you not making money, every barrel in there, they go 25 cents goes to the county on every barrel, $1.25 goes to the city schools. Our school systems are funded not predominantly, but a lot on the bourbon industry, because that's a tax. It's called an inventory tax, and it comes back to the community. So we love seeing these warehouses going up and adding more barrels of bourbon in there, because it's revenue coming back to the cities and the county. So for those out there in our community to say, I don't like bourbon, I don't like drinking bourbon, I don't like the alcohol, I don't like any factor that has to do with that, we'd like to say, well, they are giving back to the community, and your child in the school system is benefiting from it. Whether you like to drink it or not, it is an economic vitality piece of what we're doing here in Bardstown and Nelson County. And these warehouses are going up everywhere. If you come in one part of the community, off the south side, all you see are these warehouses. We will have people come to our visitor center. My office, which is a visitor center, is why do you all have so many prisons in this town? Because if you look at some of the older warehouses, and not the new ones, they have bars on all the windows for about 3 stories up, because people used to get in there and steal barrels of bourbon and drink bourbon and whatever. So they had to put bars on the windows. And I never thought of it. I guess they kind of look like prisons, but they're not prisons. They are something that's very, very important to us. And I keep looking out, because it's just for me to see those barrels out there and to see everything that's going on here. It warms my heart, because this is who we are now, and this is what's happening. What do you do to generate tourism during the slow months? Well, as you see, this is a very slow month. If you can survive in Bardstown in January and February, you're a pretty stable business right now. You know, we are full this weekend. For some reason, I guess it's Valentine's Day, I'm not really sure. There is not a hotel, Airbnb, or bed and breakfast that you can get in Bardstown right now. We're all booked up from Friday all the way to Sunday. And we're that quintessential small town. We're that town that, you know, people see romance in downtown and cute shops and fun restaurants and neat bars and things like that. And that's what we promote. But bourbon is never off season. Bourbon now, you know, for some of the other tourism aspects like the outdoor drama, you know, they're seasonal. Bourbon is year-round now. These bourbon distilleries are operating 24/7. They're not shutting down, and their tourism is, you know, they're giving tours all the time now. So they have actually increased our off seasons, because now there's something to do in the off season in this community. Before it was a sleepy little town during January and February, and we, you know, we looked at the weekend traffic. We get a lot of traffic from Nashville and from Cincinnati, and it's those big city people who want to come to the country. You know, they want to say, oh, let's go to a cute town and stay in an Airbnb, and let's eat and drink and shop downtown. That's who we are. We were named in 2012 the most beautiful small town in America. It's not self-proclaimed, though we think we are. It was a contest that USA Today had with Rand McNally, and it was on the Travel Channel, and it was a contest nationwide for small towns all across the country. Well, we made the top 5. Judges were sent all across the country to judge the communities, and they picked Bardstown as the most beautiful small town. Picked us over Sedona, Arizona. And if you've ever been to Sedona and know anything about Sedona, there are big rocks and red rocks and everything. It's a beautiful place. They liked Bardstown because they said, yet again, we were organic, we were authentic, we were that quintessential small town. We were beautiful on the inside and out, because we know hospitality here. We're Southern, we know Southern hospitality, and people feel good when they come here. So that's what we promote in the off season. Still, it's a town you want to come to. I mean, if anybody, I won't say the guys do, but mostly the girls, if you ever watch any of those Hallmark Christmas shows or anything like that, they're all in small towns. Everyone's falling in love with an old boyfriend in a small town, coming from the big city, and they don't go back to the city, they're gonna stay in the small town. That's that romance that we try to portray here, and we keep people coming back and back year after year. What are some of the new things that the city of Bardstown is doing to bring in more tourists? Well, I left a meeting to come here, and it was of the tourism board, and we were actually putting together our strategic plan for the next 12 months and what we're going to do. And you know, part of what we are doing is just working with our distilleries right now. While bourbon is hot, we're going to hit on it. So most of our marketing and all of our efforts right now are being thrown at bourbon. We just won a national campaign of tourism for our new marketing slogan that was actually billboarded on Short Avenue and on Main Street on billboards in downtown Lexington, and they had tabletops in some of the bars down there, and it was "Bourbon comes from Bardstown." Sweet and simple, bourbon comes from Bardstown. Now that Louisville wants to take bourbon, and you know, Lexington is really big on bourbon, Northern Kentucky has bourbon, everyone's having bourbon. But we want people to know that bourbon comes from Bardstown. You know, wine comes from Napa, bourbon comes from Bardstown. So we're trying to hit that theme really, really hard with everything that we do. So that is a big campaign that we're throwing a lot of money in right now, just to get the word out. You know, people call us the Napa Valley of the bourbon industry, and that's a great title to have. Now we got to live up to it. We're just recruited 3 brand new hotels to town. And so we will have 300 new hotel rooms this time next year. We got go ahead. They're Holiday Inn Express, Fairfield Inn by Ramada, and a La Quinta Inn. And actually, this company right here outside on a grassy area by the trees, they're looking to put a boutique hotel here also. And we had a company from Lexington, actually a hospitality company from Lexington came in today looking to do a hotel and maybe a conference center in Bardstown. So I don't know that they would want me to tell them. Yeah, I did have to sign an NDA today, but it was one of the Lexington, and I've met with them for years and tried to convince them. I think finally they get it.
How would you say the hotel supply is here in Bardstown?
The hotel supply is horrible here. We don't have good hotels anymore. A lot of them have lost their chains. We actually had shut down a hotel many years ago, and nobody ever bought it back. So what happened here is the fact that since our hotels weren't doing very well, everybody started opening up Airbnbs and vacation rentals, and we have a boatload of those, and they are really, really nice. I mean, they are very, very high end. We have a lot of bed and breakfast here, but now we've got these. So other than that, the only one we really had were Hampton Inn, a Comfort Inn, and then we had Best Western. But now we're going to have 300 new nice hotels to be able to promote people. We got a lot of bus tours that come in here. I mean, you would think not really just for the bourbon, but bus tours coming to visit Bardstown and My Old Kentucky Home State Park and the history. We have a very famous Civil War museum here. And so these people are coming to see those things as well too. So these 3 hotels are going to be really, really huge for us. You know, it's not just about what the Tourism Commission does, but every one of these distilleries, they're spending millions and millions of dollars on advertising all across the country, advertising all across the world. One of my dearest friends is Fred Noe, and he's a master distiller, Jim Beam. He's Jim Beam's great-great-grandson, and still is in the Jim Beam house. But every month he's flying somewhere. He's going to Russia, he's going to Japan, he's going to Denmark, he's going to Australia. But he's like a rock star in the bourbon industry. So there are people there bringing him internationally and national, and he's telling the Bardstown story. So we have these distilleries in addition to what we're doing, telling the Bardstown story. What separates Bardstown from the other cities that people may visit along the Bourbon Trail? Bourbon comes from Bardstown. This is the heart and soul of the bourbon industry. This is where the majority of the bourbon industries were when they were here pre-Prohibition. We had 24 distilleries. Majority of the products that are on the shelves right here at some point in time started from a brand that started in this region. What separates us is organically, this is where it all started and where it all comes from, and the majority of them are here. You can actually spend the night in Bardstown and see almost every one of them on the Bourbon Trail. They're all within 45 minutes of an hour, but the majority are within 15 minutes of your Airbnb if you stay here too. So that's what sets us apart. It sets us apart. You can, the influx of what you want to see are right here in Bardstown. But what makes Louisville different from Bardstown, and that's one of the questions too I'm going to segue into. Louisville is our San Francisco. If we're Napa Valley, Louisville is San Francisco, meaning you can fly into Louisville, you can rent a car in Louisville, you can take an Uber here if you want, you can have your big city experience, you can have your boutique hotels, your great restaurants, cool bars. You can do all of that. And then you could go through the few distilleries that they have, but they're kind of storefront distilleries. They're not, you know, on hundreds of acres of land or anything like that, but you can have that experience. But if you want to taste it, touch it, stick your finger in it, you know, smell it when you get out of the door, you have to come to Bourbon Country and you have to come here. So we play well with Louisville. Louisville, we do marketing campaigns with Louisville. We go on the road and travel together. We go to travel shows, and we have big booths that are bars, and we're promoting Bourbon Country. That's what we say, it's all Bourbon Country, and we work really well together. We found that there are power in numbers when it comes to distilleries and when it comes to bourbon. And we just can't do it all by ourselves, but we embrace what they're doing in Louisville, and we embrace what some of the other communities are doing, you know, in Shelbyville with their distillery there. Frankfort's got some stuff going, of course, with Buffalo Trace, and then you've got everything going up in northern Kentucky with New Riff and some other distilleries up there. We actually are all getting along well, and we're starting to send people from one town to another. That really wasn't happening a few years ago, but I think that that's changing, and I think we all know that the more we get people here and we capture them and sending them each places, it's going to be cool, and everybody's going to do well. Tourism has done a lot for the local community. We bring in about $1 million in revenue, and that's our restaurant tax revenue and our lodging tax revenue. And so we generate about $1 million a year. And we spend a lot of those back to the local entities. We help incent new events. We help market all the nonprofits here. We do all their marketing and all that for them. And then we're not just bourbon, we're really specific about promoting Bardstown itself, whether it's downtown businesses or whether it's My Old Kentucky Home State Park. We really, for those entities that don't have the money to do the marketing, we step in and spend the money to do it ourselves. And then tourism, it employs thousands of people here. The Kentucky Bourbon Festival, we were in, gosh, about our 20th year this year, I guess, and started nothing except as a gala for the bourbon industry. It was just like all the distilleries got together one night and had a big party, and they tried everybody's drinks and everybody's new bourbons, and it was just a big old party. And it's grown into a national festival to where we have just about every state usually comes, and we'll have 13 countries. They say about 65,000 people converge on a town of 14,000 during the 4 days of the Kentucky Bourbon Festival. But it's all the distilleries. They set up booths, and we have music, and we have galas, and it's mostly event oriented and things like that. But it's put us on a lot of maps. You know, the big thing that we're going after now are influencers. You know, everybody say travel writers or whatever, but the real influencers right now are those people who are blogging or doing Instagram and things like that. We've started really going after those people and not just travel writers who are in a magazine, because who's reading magazines anymore? So, and we've really done a good job on getting those cool, hip influencers to start talking about Bardstown. Because of that, the Bourbon Festival is growing, and we're seeing a whole new demographic come in. And you know, the demographic on the Bourbon Trail is very high end. I mean, you know, the average salary of someone on the Bourbon Trail that comes through is like $80,000 or $90,000. And you know, they spend, when they're here, they said they spend $400 or $500 on buying bourbons and things like that. So it's a good demographic. They spend money when they're here, and they don't mind spending $250 in an Airbnb room. So it's a demographic we like. But the Bourbon Festival has really put us on the map. It's grown, and it will continue to grow. And the only thing that's happened to us is Bourbon and Beyond in Louisville has gotten to be the same weekend as we are. And you can only do so much bourbon in one weekend. And it's competition to us, and we're trying to figure it out. And we're working with them. And this year, we're up against Louder Than Life. We're not up against Bourbon and Beyond or Hometown Rising, which are 3 concerts that they have right in a row. We're actually up against Louder Than Life, which is more of the rock and roll, the heavy rock stuff. That's not our demographic for the Bourbon Festival. So we figure we'll probably do a little bit better this year and not compete with Louisville in a Bourbon Beyond that has Metallica or whatever, you know, these Led Zeppelin or whoever is coming. You just can't compete with that when we're having, you know, our country music stars Thank you, guys. I'm so glad you were here.